What's going on YouTube? Aaron here, and in today's video we are going to be going over a super bizarre story, a wild story, one that I had not heard about up until recently, and that is the story of William Earl Moldt. Now, I don't know if I'm saying his last name correctly, so I'm just going to refer to him as William from now on. But when I first heard about this story, I immediately thought this is the perfect thing to talk about or to cover on this channel because, as of lately, we've been going over these missing persons cases and talking about true crime and using Google Earth and maps to better understand some of these cases. And this one has all of that. I mean, as you can see from the title, there's no mystery around this case anymore. Some people still think there is a bit of mystery, but ultimately it is solved. And so before we get into the nitty-gritty and dive into the maps ourselves, let's get a little bit of a backstory on William. So on July 11th, 1997, 40-year-old William at the time was at a nightclub or some sort of a club or bar in South Florida. He called his girlfriend around 9:30 to let her know that he would be heading home soon. And not even 2 hours later, right around 11, it was reported that he left the club in his 1994 Saturn SL. Apparently, he was stone cold sober and showed no signs of distress. And so people, no one was led to believe that he would have any issue getting home safely. And, that was the last night that anyone saw William. He never made it back to his home. Unfortunately, he was declared missing several months later, which a lot of people are a little bit weirded out by, or at least concerned that it took that long for the official, missing report to come out, considering he went missing on July 11th. I don't know why it took until November. I'm sure there's way more information about the case that we could go into, but he remained missing all the way until very recently, just a couple years ago in 2019. So how was he found? That is where we can dive into the maps. So we're here in South Florida, specifically north of Miami. So that's going to be the biggest city that we're near. Of course, you got Fort Lauderdale, Pompano Beach, West Palm Beach, and that is near where we're going to be going to the town or the city of Wellington. A neighbor in the Grand Isles gated community in Wellington was surveying an area when she quickly noticed something very strange. And I'm going to zoom in exactly where she was looking. This is that Grand Isles gated community, and you can already see it. They've made it a historic landmark on the map, but she noticed that it appeared a car was visible through the satellite imagery just below the surface of the water. And if we zoom in, it's very easy to find this on Google because all you have to type in is car underwater since 1997 and it will pull up this historical landmark. This is what she found. So I don't know which house she was looking at in the area. She may have been several houses down the block, but then noticed something and then zoomed in to find what looked like a car. And I mean, it's very clear in this image that it looks just like a car. So, she quickly notified local law enforcement, and upon investigation, they identified that the car in the pond was in fact the 1994 Saturn SL that William drove. And this is actually a photo of them dragging the car out of the water. And obviously in the image from above, it almost looks yellow. That could be due to any number of things. I mean, the car was underwater for 22 years. So there was a lot of calcification apparently. And then also, the sun also can change the color of things when you've got something, the sun beating down on something for so long. And so the car appears to be kind of a light blue car underneath all of the muck. But from the top, it almost looked like it was yellowing. But that could have been the calcification. I'm not sure. But not only was the car that had been submerged for under 22 years found, but also the skeletal remains of William Earl Moldt. That is really, that's the bulk of the story, is that this girl, through Google Images, found a car that was tied to a missing persons case from 22 years prior. And guys, this is why I find Google Maps, Google Earth, all of this so interesting, not only in missing persons cases, but just any sort of mystery, any sort of, what if it was just a stolen car? I mean, that would be a much less crazy situation. But if you just imagine if your car was stolen in 1997 and someone found out that they see a car that looks like, or, they see what looks like a car under the surface of the water. And then you later found out that that was your car. You'd be like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. This happens to be a much bigger story with a body involved, a missing person involved. But this is why I like this kind of stuff so much, is these images don't lie, right? Sometimes there's flukes in the images, and I'm going to have a video talking about that in the future. Sometimes we see things maybe not quite how they are, but overall, these images reveal so much to us, and this is just such a bizarre story that this was found. Some theorize that he, lost control of his car and drove it into the pond, and just wasn't able to get out, and that's why he seemingly drowned. But nobody actually lived in this property that was right next to where they found the car at the time, so it apparently went unnoticed, and that's what some people theorize. But when I look at this, and I think about how, close to the edge of the pond or the little body of water this is, and how just under the surface this was, it's like you would think that someone would have been able to find this throughout the years. Even, it doesn't look like this is a swimming lake by any means. It looks kind of just like part of this neighborhood. But you would think that over the years, someone walking along the grass would have found this car, would have been able to see into the car. I mean, we're talking over 2 decades here. So, there's some people online, and I'm not going to go into some of the details around the case, but there are definitely people online that suspect there was foul play involved. But the local police, shortly after, were quick to point out that they believed there was no foul play. And I'm sure there probably wasn't. I'm sure this was a case of maybe him having some sort of a medical emergency on his way home and crashing the car into the water. But what I would like to know, and what I haven't been able to find, is where did he live? Did he live specifically in this neighborhood? Because it looks like there's really only a couple of ways to get into this area. And if his house happened to be just down the street, that would make sense. Maybe he pulled in, and just as he was coming around this corner, he had a stroke or he had a heart attack or something, and that's what led him to crashing the car into the water. But if he lived in this neighborhood near Wellington, say down here on Windsor Bay Place, I don't know, just using that as an example, this would lead me to believe that there was some extra stuff going on because it's a completely different area, right? So I looked into where he actually lived, and I wasn't able to really find that. But it's interesting nonetheless. And I don't know much about this guy. I don't know what kind of club he was at, if he was at a bar, a strip club, just a nightclub. I don't know what this man was doing on July 11th, whether he was just having a good night by himself out at the bars. I don't know. But what I do know is he didn't end up making it home. And there's some weird things around the story with him being stone cold sober that, they raise red flags, because it's like, well, what was his health conditions, right? Was he potentially at risk for certain things like heart attack or stroke? Because that would help determine whether or not that possibility would be, something that people could lean on in terms of the case. So I don't know. I just heard about the story recently, and I'm certainly going to dive in a little bit deeper. And if there's anything I find, I'll definitely make a video about it. But at the very least, I wanted to show you guys that, this was something that was interesting. And, it's related kind of to what we've been talking about. Oh, and one other thing, I think it's called the Charlie Project, which is an online database that collects information around cold cases. They said it was probably possible for the car to be visible over 10 years prior in 2007. They were able to pull up some Google imagery from 2007, and though it wasn't as crystal clear, not that this is even crystal clear, but though it wasn't as clear as this image, they still would have maybe been able to find the car had someone noticed it. but it just wasn't quite as high quality as the images that we have today. So it's pretty wild to think that the case 10, 12 years prior could have been solved if someone would have come across that satellite imagery. And so it just goes to show that just, going through these satellite images could reveal something strange, could reveal something bizarre, or even related to a serious case like this. So I don't know. That's like I said earlier in the video, that's why I like going through these. I just find it so interesting to be able to look around the world and see it clearer and clearer each time they do updates on this satellite imagery. So anyways, that's the video. I hope you guys found it somewhat enjoyable. I thought it was a pretty wild story, and I figured I'd share if you haven't heard it already. And if you've heard this already, I apologize. But yeah, drop a like down below if you want to see more videos just like this, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.